How is the last entry of that franchise the worst one? Jesus Christ, there was a blueprint. With films like Scream, the new Blumhouse Halloween trilogy, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Evil Dead Rise, and so many more, we're seeing a mass flooding in the horror genre of sequels, reboots, and requels? Is it a curse or a blessing? Is it refreshing or recycling? It's time to talk horror with your hosts, What's up, horror fam? Steven aka Bojangles here, and come closer, my friends. I have something scary to tell you. Today, I'm sitting down with Anna to discuss the resurgence of sequelitis, horror reboots, and requels that are taking over the genre we love. Forget the tea, we're spilling the guts on this one. Sit back and enjoy, horror fam. Hi, Anna.
Hi, Birdie.
All right, today's going to be a fun one because we're going to be talking about this new revival that's happening in horror. That is sequelitis, which I feel like we're just constantly trapped in anyway. So that's
it's part of the genre.
That's just part of the genre at this point. But we do have now we kind of have this new thing where it's legacy sequels.
Right.
Or I guess you could call it requels. To an extent.
Well, I think interestingly, I think legacy sequels and requels are actually two different things.
Really?
Subtly.
All right.
Right.
Give it to me.
I think a legacy sequel can just be a sequel that comes long after the last sequel happened and maybe brings back some of the original characters. Okay. And a requel, I think, has to also involve getting rid of, pretending some of the sequels didn't happen so that it's a new sequel to the original film. I think that's where the requel comes from.
So a good legacy sequel would be something like if there was a sequel all of a sudden to Jaws 4.
Right.
That just picks up with those same characters and it's just that story directly.
Yeah. Imagine if suddenly now we had, Mike, Mike's children. So he's the older man,
Yeah.
And his kids are the ones, getting attacked by the shark.
Now, a requel, a good example of that would be something like Scream 2022 or Halloween 2018.
Oh, yeah. Halloween 2018 is perfect. Scream is actually where we kind of got the term requel, I think, right? So,
yeah, right.
Yeah, so those are both great examples of movies that have decided at least half of the sequels didn't actually happen. Here's a new thing. Here's a new timeline or
it's really weird and it doesn't happen that often really or it used not to I guess Halloween H2O was kind of a requel, I guess, because it picked up after the original Halloween 2. It
was absolutely a requel before the term was coined.
Yeah.
And oddly kind of a legacy sequel. You know what I mean? Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because it finally brought back Laurie Strode after she had been gone for so long.
Yeah. So, you have that. And then you have something like Halloween 2018, who is now Halloween H2O didn't happen. Right. And the original Halloween 2 didn't happen. This picks up after the original.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is interesting because I think 2018 and the movies that came after it really hinge on Laurie's trauma. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Halloween 2, the original Halloween 2, is so much more traumatic.
Yeah.
Or traumatizing maybe than the first film.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, it gives you it's kind of like this weird thing, it's Halloween, okay, we were talking about this the other day when we were out and we were kind of just talking about how we feel a little bit bad that the new generation of horror fans who are coming up, they sort of kind of don't have their own horror films. Like it's cool in one way, and in another way it's kind of not. Like they don't have their own franchises yet. They're kind of like we're kind of like sucking them into ours.
Right. I agree. I think, it's a lot of fan service to the older horror fans. Yeah. But I think what's so fun in the past, in our, horror history, is that each generation kind of has its own like niche of horror films. You've got obviously like, well, we'll just start in the 80s, so we're not going too far back. But like in the 80s, you've got like all the big slashers, right?
Just a plethora.
And all the kids growing up then, all the teenagers really like got to really enjoy that because those films are packed full of teenagers, not young adults, not adults, teenagers, right? Yeah. And then in the 90s, you had a resurgence of that with Scream. And then, as the years progressed, then you got I Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legend.
Yeah, like all those kind of rip-offs.
Yeah, right. And they're all teenagers. Some of them start to get into like the college years, but it's like right around that age group. So it is, to me, it is kind of sad that like right now you're getting a lot of the reboots, requels, sequels, because they're not, where are the like the big franchise teen? Right? I think you get one-offs every once in a while, but nothing that a studio is willing to pump, a lot of money into 3 or 4 movies that are brand new. And they're all about, the type of lives that today's teenagers are living.
Yeah. Yeah. It's odd. I think, I mean, because look, so this is happening right now because there's like a lot of uncertainty in the film industry.
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, we have heard interviews with Jason Blum, who of course runs Blumhouse Productions, one of the biggest in horror right now. And he was so stoked when he got his hands on the Halloween franchise because he was like, Blumhouse has a certain formula and we would, love to apply this to an established IP.
Yeah.
Like he was so stoked about how much money he was about to make and this formula.
Yeah. Yeah.
That he wanted to apply to it.
That he was so sure would be so successful.
Yeah. Right. So it's like, on one hand you have that, like they want to obviously maximize profits.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like if you have a legacy title associated with your film that's coming out, I mean, people are going to show up to see that. You're going to have a built-in audience no matter what, typically.
Right.
Unless you just completely goof it up.
Right.
Which I do feel like Blumhouse has done a little bit, so we'll get into that. But to an extent, with certain entries, certainly.
Yeah.
But I also feel like they may kind of be like the hope for that like upcoming generation. While they do have a formula, they certainly have a formula.
Yeah.
But they are also like, you're starting to see it like, we're going to get Megan 2.0. That could potentially turn into something. However, they do kind of like jump the shark with some of the stuff they do.
Yeah.
But like, we're getting the Black Phone too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see kind of if they can establish franchises in their own right.
Yeah.
Because hell, man, it may just be a thing where teens don't even want their own.
I mean, that's totally possible. It's hard to speak for a generation you're not part of. So it is more of like, I guess, our own nostalgia speaking that says like, because we both have a lot of nieces and nephews, and it's hard not to want that for them. That kind of experience of seeing your own friend group on screen that you have to pick totally relatable kids you really like and can get into and feel like, oh gosh, that's how I would behave in this situation. That's how I would feel. That's how, or look, that girl is just like my best friend or whatever. Or, oh, that boy I have such a crush on. Because even some of the franchises you were just mentioning are movies about adults or movies about the interaction between young children and adults, you know, in the Black Phone as an example. But like that singular type of movie where it's a group of teenagers battling against, you know, the big bad, like that's, you know, I think that, who knows, maybe teenagers don't want, but I mean, if you don't have it, how do you know if you want it or not? You know, so where are those movies to even be dipping their toes into that? You know what I mean? But I will say, on the flip of that, I have also been around teenagers who have gotten reboots of some of our beloved horror films. And that was the first entry they had ever seen. Yeah. So that can happen too, where it's like that is an introduction to an older franchise or to a whole, or to the genre itself, even, you know, where it's so and it's you know, it's interesting because they do lure sort of like, you know, because I mean, that's why they do this. They have a built-in audience. There's name recognition, brand recognition. And sometimes they're going to bring some of these stars back. I mean, for God's sakes, they will not let Jamie Lee Curtis retire. You know what I'm saying? Laurie Strode's going to be battling Michael Myers until she dies. You know, even in naturally. I mean, you know, even during the AI takeover, you know, by 2040. Laurie Strode. Yeah, and an AI Mikey, I guess. But yeah, well, because Mikey's like 80 already, right? Yeah. But you have like that nostalgia factor that does just bring you right back in. And I think that is sort of one thing I've noticed kind of like about requels and remakes and stuff like that has been an interesting shift in, I believe, like these fresher generations, right? Because the last time in horror history, I think that we had a really, really big remake dump. I'll call it. Yeah. Like a big remake resurgence, because they've always existed. I mean, for God's sakes, you know, you look back through horror history, how many Dracula movies do we have? Oh, yeah. How many versions of Frankenstein? Right. How many versions of the Wolfman? I mean, hell, we're right now getting another version of the Wolfman. Right. We just got another version of Dracula, Nosferatu ripoff. Yeah. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So one thing I've seen is that these fresher generations, I do believe, are more welcoming of stuff like that, because during like... I think historically, if you look back on the horror fandom, they're not fans of remakes. Right, the remakes were like, boo. Right, yes, yes. Like, I believe stuff like, and it's weird because I've seen this transition take place. So I think, for instance, the weird thing about it is like that the 2003 remake of like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was unfairly hated. Yeah. That is such a great movie. Because audiences weren't ready for the remakes. They weren't. And it's interesting. It's a great example, I think, because having seen so many remakes now. Yeah. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake is easily one of the best remakes that's been done. Absolutely. But people weren't ready for it. And so even if you said that to them now, they'd be like, you're wrong. And it's like, bro, go back and watch it. Right. Especially watch it compared to a lot of the remakes you've gotten in the last 5-10 years. Right. Yeah. Because that's 20 plus years old now, 22 years old now. And which is a frightening thing to say, but it is. It's 22 years old now. And if you go back and watch it now, it's so much better than a lot of the remakes we're getting right now. Yeah, absolutely. So I think like the thing used to be like remakes weren't welcome among these older generations as long as they didn't affect their nostalgia. So for instance, people who grew up in the 60s, you know, they had all the 50s Dracula movies. So they didn't mind that those were remakes. Right. You know, just like we don't mind that
The Fly is a remake. We love The Fly from 1986.
Right.
We love
wildly different from the original, by the way.
Right? We love the Invasion of the Body Snatchers remake with Donald Sutherland in it.
Yeah.
You know, so as long
the Blob remake.
The Blob remake, we absolutely love it. So I think I think there was a hatred for remakes. Mm-hmm. Among those older generations, if it affected their nostalgia.
Right, if it was
you know what I'm saying?
Too soon, right?
Yeah. Now, I think now, possibly, you know, because I don't know about you, but I welcome remakes to an extent.
To an extent.
You know what I'm saying? Like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, absolutely love it. The Friday the 13th remake, that is my favorite horror franchise.
Yeah.
Has been since I was a child.
Yeah.
I loved the remake.
Yeah.
I welcomed it. But I do think that Friday the 13th remake was right on the cusp. Right before.
Where some people liked it, some people didn't like it.
Yeah, I think that was right on the cusp of where remakes weren't quite accepted yet, but they were starting to become. So I think had that movie came out in like 2016,
even
certainly.
Just like 5 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think people would have. It would have been more well received.
Been more there for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I think you're right. And I try at least to not be overly precious about movies and whether or not something is worthy of a reboot, remake. Especially because it is easy to go back, especially if you're looking at movies from maybe the 60s, 70s, even the 80s, and really say, oh man, could you imagine how good this would look with updated technology, you know? And so it's like that kind of thing. Or if this gem of an indie small budget film, you know, from the 70s, 80s, whatever, got a big budget, if somebody got behind it, right? Like it's a cult classic, people love it, but really if you try to show it to a friend now, they're like, what's happening here? Yeah. And it's like, man, if this got a big studio behind it, got a remake, like it could really be something, right? Like I love that kind of stuff. Like give me that. I will say there are some though that I am a little precious about, that I do feel like I really, I guess, almost want like studios, producers, directors to really like be self-aware. Can I make a better film?
Yeah.
I don't think there's any point to a remake if you don't honestly believe you have something new to bring to the table.
Absolutely.
And I think when a movie is excellent, let's say something like The Exorcist, something like Jaws, right?
Yeah.
If it's excellent,
and
you can't honestly say, I too am excellent, I will bring something to this that will make all the people who have loved this film since the moment it came out also love my film. Like I think like this is going to sound wildly pretentious. I'm going to apologize in advance. But there are some times when we're watching remakes. And I'm just like, they make decisions that are so off the wall in the story. Whereas if they had just stuck to what they did in the original, that I think to myself, does this guy, this person, whoever wrote the movie, directed the new movie, thinks they're smarter than the person who wrote the original, even though the original is a classic. People love it. There's a reason they love it, right? And if you write out some of the things that people loved about the movie, you better be making an awesome decision, right? Because otherwise, like, bro, you just decided you're smarter than Steven Spielberg. And this will be the last movie you ever made. Good job. Right? Like, or whatever, you know, as an example, like, you know, so that kind of is, you know, it's like, be thoughtful, be thoughtful. What are you bringing to the table? Why are you remaking this movie? Is it a cash in, or do you honestly believe you have something excellent to bring to the table?
I don't think, sadly, that we get enough of that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like a great example of it, I think, is the new Nosferatu. You know what I'm saying? Because I think Robert Eggers is a brilliant filmmaker. I loved his original entries. I love The Northman.
Yeah.
I think that is a beautiful movie.
Yeah.
I love The Witch. Nosferatu, they relegated him to a remake. We've already seen this, and not only that, but it was a stolen property of Dracula.
Right. I think like that's such
You know what I'm saying? So
like, let's just start there. It's such a questionable decision.
Yeah, so we didn't need that story to be retold.
Yeah.
And not only that, but it is a ripoff of Dracula.
Yeah.
So, but in his remake, if he had just sat down and been like, man, I'm just going to copy the template of Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula.
So much better.
He could have had some, but he just took Dracula and removed some of the good stuff.
Yeah. That's always been my problem with Nosferatu. I mean, secondary problem, right? The original being that it was copyright infringement to the point where it lost its copyright suit, right? So the fact that we brought it back is, I don't know, feels like a slap in the face. Like, do we forget that that's what happened? Is it was a copyright infringement and they lost the lawsuit and that's why all the copies of Nosferatu disappeared? But anyways, like beyond that, its original story, Bram Stoker's Dracula, the book, they removed a lot of the elements. I mean, and it made sense at the time. It's a silent film. There's only so much they could have gone into. In this day and age, you can do everything.
Yeah.
And they absolutely did remove some of the most interesting things about that story.
And I do
like, what? You know, and why would you do that?
I do think that's a shame because, like I said, like his original contributions to the horror genre or just the film, I think are great. I think he's capable of so much more than relegating him to an uninspired remake. I really do. And I see that next, they've announced that he's going to do a Christmas Carol remake. I do believe it is.
Yeah.
That's the one with like the 3 ghosts or whatever.
Yeah.
They're going to do that. And it's like, dude, no, give him something original, man.
Yeah.
Because he is better than this, but it's just one of those things. It's one of those trendy things right now. It's not only happening in the horror genre, we're seeing it with, Star Wars. The
never-ending saga.
The never-ending saga.
And that's coming from a fan. Like, I love Star Wars. And I'm still like, oh, okay.
Like, man, they are milking that bad boy dry, son.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? They're going to get sand out of those boobies before too long if they keep it up. And then, you get, that's right, baby. Hey, and then, but I mean, the Marvel universe is insane. I mean, that's all regurgitation, whether you love them or not. I mean, those are different types of films. They're easy just to sit back and kind of be like a special effects wonder.
Yeah. Should I insert here that both of those franchises were bought by Disney?
That is very true.
Okay, go ahead.
That is very true. But you know what I'm saying? But
also, leave that there.
Also though, like with streaming platforms, they have absolutely changed the game. The industry has changed
wildly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they want stuff that they can put out in front of you
as quickly as possible.
And you're going to sit there and while you're streaming through it, you're going to see a poster and you're going to be like, oh, I recognize that. And, it could be Pinhead, Leatherface, whatever.
Right.
And you're going to sit there and be like, oh my God, dude, we got to sit down and watch this. But I mean, so they're just, it's a content farm that needs to grab attention like it's a freaking YouTube thumbnail.
Yeah.
So, that is another reason why we're getting so many of these too. And, especially for some of like the kind of more forgotten franchises, we'll say.
Yeah.
It's easier for them to obtain those. It's cheaper.
Yeah.
So they get to get their hands on those, but they're once an established franchise and now they get a insert a requel or whatever you would call it.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it funny that I would prefer if they were going to do a bunch of remakes, reboots, whatever, that they pulled from franchises that are maybe like also beloved within a genre, but not massive. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think we need another Michael Myers movie. But like, wouldn't it be cool to get a new Warlock movie?
Ooh,
you know what I mean? Something like that, where it's just like, look, horror fans love those movies.
Yeah.
They're worthy of it. But I think there's enough of an audience that are like, what? Warlock? Who? You know what I mean? That if you put it out there, you have enough of an audience that thinks it's a fresh film.
Yeah, that could be really cool.
But it's something that I think absolutely would benefit from like updated special effects and a bigger budget.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, because you have there are some special effects in there that are a little bit cheesy to this day. Cause the Warlock, obviously, rest in peace, Julian Sands.
So he was so good.
Love Julian Sands, baby.
Yeah.
But, some of those effects are a little bit cheesy.
Yeah.
So like they could ramp those up, the flying scenes where he's supposedly flying and it's just, he's probably on the back of like a trailer while they're driving it, or he's standing in a studio and they just have a fan blowing it,
I mean, they probably still do the same thing, but
they probably do, but like they could do bad. It's like, all right, only shoot this from the waist up.
But the effects would still look amazing.
We'll just have his hair blowing,
comparatively. Yeah. I mean, they're so like he's, Warlock would imply he's performing magic throughout the film, right? And I mean, like I don't know if you haven't seen the movie, just from us talking about like some of those magic effects are gonna look really cheesy. Yeah. And we are post Harry Potter. Those special effects are going to look amazing now, right?
Yeah. And I think another thing, another reason why this is happening so much right now, clearly we talked about it, is like the nostalgia thing, and they mix a ton of fan service into some of these remakes or requels, whatever the hell you want to call them. And we've seen it done well with, I'm going to give a really great example that's actually not even in the horror genre.
Okay.
Top Gun Maverick. That's right. We both look back so fondly on that movie.
Filmmaking done right.
I consider it an honor that we saw that film in theaters.
Yeah.
I think that is an incredible movie.
Yeah.
I think it is the absolute right way to do a requel. Is that what you'd call it?
Well, no, because it's actually the very first sequel to that movie.
That's true.
Like that, so it would be nothing ever. So a legacy sequel. A legacy
sequel. See, yeah, man, these terms,
30 years. It doesn't. It's a sequel. 30 years later,
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is. And they offer fan service in there. But it's not overbearing. It's not shoved down your throat. It is fan service that gets people who saw the original film. It gets them giddy.
Yeah.
It's not a shit ton.
Yeah.
They don't throw a shit ton in there, but they throw enough in there to make you feel special and be like, oh man, I remember that. But also, if you came in and watched that movie without watching the original, you could follow it easily. It is its own movie.
Absolutely. I agree. I think if anything, knowing a little bit about Goose would help.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It helps hit those emotional cues.
It would help with the emotional cues, but
and some of the story,
but otherwise, like the storytelling, absolutely. I think like a good example of that is his love interest, right? His love interest in Maverick is Penny Benjamin.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is I would imagine that a lot of people who watched the movie, that went right over their head. Like, who's Penny Benjamin? Right?
Guarantee it. Because it went over my head.
Right? Like, who's Penny Benjamin? But the people who watched the movie over and over and over again like myself.
Yeah.
Right? Was like, oh, no way, Benny Benjamin. And she's mentioned literally once in the first movie.
in like passing.
Once.
Right? Like it's not made a thing.
No, but it's a really funny moment between Maverick and Goose.
But you see what I'm saying? I had no clue
Yeah.
that was a little Easter egg.
Yeah.
You did. I didn't. It didn't make a difference for me.
Make it, right?
But it made you feel a little giddy.
Yeah.
But it didn't take anything away from
exactly.
it. Yeah.
So it's the type of fan service that is just like slipped in. And I think like there are other things in the film that are fans, you can call them fan service, but really what they are is you are so in someone's life in both movies that, well, yeah, it makes sense that Goose's son plays Goose's song on the piano.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like that. So you get that fan service moment because it happens to happen on screen. But really, it's like, here's a kid who misses his father so much. So you're going to get like, he sits down at the piano and he plays his dad's song. And yeah, so it's that kind of, it's fan service done right? Like where it's subtle enough and it makes sense in the moment enough that it just feels like a natural part of the storytelling.
And it's so well written that, you know, like I said, like even if you hadn't watched the original and you didn't know the thing about Goose, like they do go over that a little bit, like because the characters discover like, oh, this is what's up with that drama.
Yeah.
You know, so it's well written enough to where like audiences of all ages, whether you watched the first one, whether you didn't, whether you grew up with the first one, whether you didn't, you can come in, sit your ass down, follow along, and watch an incredible movie. So I think Top Gun Maverick is a fantastic example of fan service done right, because you almost wouldn't even know that they are, you know, tickling you a little bit with it.
Right.
But I mean, because that's why I want to ask you, do you think fan service or nostalgia, is that a good thing for horror or is it a bad thing? Or is it holding horror back?
God, that's such a good question. You know, I think in general, nostalgia is bad for creativity.
Okay.
I think that we have reached a certain level of nostalgia in our zeitgeist and our like pop culture world that is actually artificial, right?
Yeah.
It has been created by the world's best marketers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And it does come and go in waves.
Yeah.
You know, we just had the 80s nostalgia, which was huge. You know, Stranger Things was kind of the front runner for that.
Yeah.
In horror, certainly.
Yeah.
And now we're going through a 90s nostalgia thing, clearly.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because, you know, I think some of that is natural. You see it, I think a really kind of great example of the natural cycle of things is like fashion. Because in the 90s, a lot of what we were wearing, my mom would tease me like that's what they were wearing in the 60s.
Yeah.
And now I am watching my teenage niece wear what I was wearing in high school. And so it's like you see there's kind of like and you see that a lot in all kinds of like ideas in, you know, just cultural pendulum swings of things come in and out of like, I guess, fashion, whether it's, you know, clothing or just, you know, trends, you know, and things that people are interested in. So some of that is going to happen. I think the depths of which it has happened in the last, you know, 10, 15 years, like that's where it starts to feel very manufactured. You know, it's like where it's less even just the remakes and more like here's like utter like we're actually like you said, like Stranger Things is a great example. It's happening in the 80s. We are literally sitting down and rewatching the 80s happen, you know. And I think on a certain level, like it really stifles creativity, because creativity comes from like, what's new? What's next? Like what's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And instead we have a whole host of like studios and writers who are focused on what was last, what happened back then, what, you know what I mean? What did things look like then? Well, you know,
Yeah.
it's like, in having grown up in the 80s, so many of our films were about the future.
Mm-hmm.
What is the future going to look like? What is the
Yeah, what
future
does
going to
that
feel
hold
like?
for
What
us?
is going to,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? What's coming next? So it
Yeah.
is strange to be living in a time where the focus is so much on the past.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it stifles some of the fresh ideas, you know?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think that kind of brings us into what I would consider like our next topic, which is like looking at some of these requels, sequels, reboot, whatever. You know, I wish there was just a catch-all term, you know, because there's just so many of them now.
Yeah.
That, you know, like that have just kind of like taken the world by storm and are kind of like just running the horror genre as a whole right now on their just carrying it on their shoulders.
Yeah.
And which ones kind of like flopped.
Yeah.
And, you know, speaking about this fan service and the nostalgia, Halloween 2018,
Yeah.
they leaned hard into, I couldn't name a more prime example of just, I'll call it fan stroking, and you can use your imagination as to what I'm talking about. But I mean, they absolutely hammered your ass.
Yeah.
With fan service in that one. So much so, now, like I said, now I know that this movie did phenomenally well.
Yeah.
I wanted to like it more than I did. I think it's very mid.
Yeah.
Very mid, just right down the middle for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it did extremely well, but it seems like it has transcended all age groups. You know, I know new Halloween fans coming in love this movie.
Yeah.
But the weird thing is, I feel like it really cheated them out of a Halloween franchise entry, because it didn't feel like its own entry to me, because there was so much fan service in it.
Yeah.
It was like, holy shit, I'm paying more attention to, well, look, there's the silver shamrock mask. Oh my God, this is the same way Michael killed Bob 40 years ago.
Right.
It's like, and it was just over and over, instead of, there's some things he does the same. Right. You know, he might have the same mannerisms. He may travel to for God's sakes, it's fucking Haddonfield.
Yeah.
He may travel to some of the same locations. That's where he was 40 years.
Yeah.
But it's like, so he has been in the insane asylum for 40 years, just thinking about how he wants to recreate his favorite moments from decades prior. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah.
But they did do other stuff too, like, oh, well, this is the same camera shot. This is the same, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that they kind of did like a really disservice to, as far as like new Halloween fans go. Like they did it under the guise of a news story, but really,
yeah,
it's kind of like a fan film.
Well, and they literally like verbally pointed out some of their fan service to you too. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like by saying, "Oh, you're the new Loomis," which I know is your cringiest moment. But it's like you know, the right. So it's like, I guess
it's either that or when he's yelling at Michael to say something in the middle of a fucking insane asylum.
Yeah,
and then it hits with that with the title card on the screen, as if that was impactful to me. I'm just sitting there like, well, this is not the move, guys. Like, whether you're a character or the filmmakers, this was very cringy,
right? And I think like our comparison to Maverick, like this makes a good point, is, you know, like we brought up the Penny Benjamin thing, and it's like you said, they don't explain to you during the movie anything. Like if you don't, you know what I mean? If you didn't know that Goose is teasing Maverick, about Penny Benjamin in the original film.
Yeah.
So sorry. you missed it, right? Yeah. Now they discuss their history the way you would in a relationship. They make that feel very natural. Yeah. But so that if you're a new viewer, you get, they've come together, fallen apart, fallen apart a couple of times. That's all you get. You never get told.
Yeah.
I remember when Goose was teasing you about her. Like they don't, you know what I mean? And so, and I think that's what the Halloween 2018 lacked, is making those moments feel natural. They felt wedged in. They felt like, I gotta tell you.
Yeah, it was almost like somebody gave them a number. Like, I want 100 references to past Halloween films, even though you are excluding them from the canon. I want you to still fit them in.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that, because you know what that feels like is writing for SEO.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You just have to stick it in. This is not a natural flow.
Your keyword needs to be in there 4 times. And for anyone else who writes for anything online, like, you'll totally get it. There are times where it feels wildly unnatural, right? Yeah. And there's, that's what this is like. And it's like hitting those check boxes so that, people get that hit of nostalgia a certain number of times, or they get that. Yeah, it's strange. It's a strange way of writing.
It was really weird, you know. And then, we had Scream. Yeah. Scream 2022. Yeah. And then you had, of course, Scream 6 came. And now I will say, in Scream's defense, kind of the cool thing about that, you get introduced to a new set of teenagers or young adults. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
And, while it is a requel.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's,
Well, it is a requel. And they do bring back some legacy characters. Yeah. So I think they did a little bit better. The only thing I'm bummed about for the new generations for the Scream films, while there are some really good things about it, you can go with your teenage friend and have it's a great popcorn flick, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The only thing I feel bad about it is the writing is nowhere near as tight, nor is the directing. And that is because when you watched the original, we'll call it like the original Scream trilogy.
Okay.
You had no clue who was going to live, who was going to die, and who the killer was.
Yeah, anybody could be on the chopping block.
Yeah, there were consequences.
Yeah.
To what happened in those films. In the new ones, it feels like everybody's going to survive. They don't have the courage. Like, it's a very safe space for horror, and that is weird. Like, horror should not be your safe space. Like you can walk out knowing, well, all my favorite characters are going to live.
The first one established a group of friends, and by the end of the second film, that group of friends is all still alive.
Yeah.
That's so weird, right? Like, in your first one, they're all dead. Like, there maybe 2 are alive, and if you haven't seen it yet, spoiler, and 2 of the friend group are the killers, right? Yeah, so it's like, literally everybody else is dead. And so at least of the teenage friend group, right? Like, 2 of them make it out alive. And then
well, I mean, you had Sydney who made it out. You had Randy. You had Dewey. And you had...
Well, see, but Dewey's an adult.
He's an adult. He's the cop, of course.
So you had some of the adults make it out. But of the teenage friend group, 2 of them make it out alive. And 2 of them also... They're the killers, but they also die, right? So in a large friend group, 2 of them make it out alive. Yeah. And in the new Scream, they all make it out alive.
Everybody lives. Everybody gets to live.
It's super strange.
So that's, I don't like that. I don't like that it is a very safe thing. But it's whooping ass. As did Halloween, that got into some murky waters as that trilogy, the Blumhouse trilogy went on. I mean,
they got weird.
Kills and Ends were not well received whatsoever. But the two recent Scream entries seem to be doing very well. And I am, happy for the new generation of horror fans. Sadly, they don't get their own franchise with their own characters, but they do get to enjoy Scream. And
what's interesting about Scream, and I think is what works for it, works in its favor for a requel type situation, is that the Scream franchise has always been meta. It has always been self-aware. It has always been, where it self-referencing. It references, the slasher genre, the rules therein, and so on and so forth. And so, when the requel came in and it got all into that, it was just like, well, yeah, that's established. That is part of this franchise. Like, we're going to talk about what's happening. You know what I mean? And I think that kind of actually, in a weird way, like helped it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does. It does because it gives a little more leeway in the writing and in the presentation, I think.
Yeah. Well, because it says to the audience, we know what we're doing. Now you know that we know what we're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're not trying to treat you like you're dumb. We know what we're doing.
Another good one I think that did well was Evil Dead Rise.
Okay. Yeah.
I think Evil Dead Rise did a good job because, this is another, established horror franchise. Mm-hmm. And they come in, their own characters, their own situation. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's its own film. Stands on its own. Like there's a little bit of fan service in there, not a shit ton. It stands on its own legs, introduces new characters in there, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, they didn't go overboard. I think there's a couple of quotes from the original films that they slip in, and you enjoy it, and you're like,
But I think it embodies the Evil Dead franchise. I think it got brutal with it, especially when you look at the remake, and the remake is so damn good.
The remake is really good.
The 2013 remake, if you haven't seen it, you really need to. Guys, it literally rains blood.
It does.
It is so good, but it also,
is very brutal.
It keeps the franchise fresh and gives it its own energy. Whereas these other ones we've talked about, Halloween, for instance, like the Halloween 2018 and Scream, they're driven by legacy characters.
They really are.
Like everybody wants Sidney Prescott. Jesus Christ, she's 50 years old. Let the woman rest. Jamie Lee Curtis. She's why I call her Grambo.
Yeah.
For God's sakes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like while Evil Dead Rise comes in, and it is certainly
brand new characters.
It's brand new characters, and it is certainly the least popular.
Yeah.
Versus the other two films we've talked about. But
for sure.
But still, I still think it did its own thing and did it very well.
Yeah.
But there's some other ones that didn't do too well.
Yeah, and we're gonna flip it because I think that actually leads really well into the Hellraiser reboot, new sequel. I don't know, new entry into an established franchise. I don't even know what you want to call that one, because I was gonna say that's another one that has all new characters.
All new characters. I guess it would just be a straight out remake.
Yeah.
I guess it would just be a flat out like it's a totally new story that tries to like.
I'm gonna go with reboot.
Okay, whatever you want to call it, but
well, it's because it's like I know, and it's so funny. The audience doesn't know, but we know that we've discussed the reboot versus remake term, right?
Yeah.
Like which it is. And my argument is, unless you've got all the same characters, all the same plot, then it's a reboot. Right? A remake is you've got the same characters, same plot. We're just remaking it.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I go, well, let's call it a reboot, because you do. Okay. You get a new Pinhead.
Get a new Pinhead.
You get a new Pinhead. The Cenobites look totally different. They even behave slightly differently, in so much as that I think in the Hellraiser, the new Hellraiser 2022, you get a lot of information about how their world works. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But this is one of those that didn't do so well. This was another that was direct to streaming.
Yeah.
So it probably a cash in, grab attention.
Yeah.
Established IP.
Yeah.
Grab attention, pump it out as quick as we can, which is another thing that apparently Hollywood is having some problems with right now. Like apparently they're not even allowing script writers to finish their scripts before they begin filming. That's something I was listening to earlier today. Like there's a lot of reports of that coming out that like, dude, we're beginning this without a script. It's like, yeah, you're a content farm now, guys. You know what I'm saying? So, Hellraiser 2022 and Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 feel like that a lot because Hellraiser was Hulu's direct to streaming entry into that established franchise, whereas Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 was Netflix's straight to streaming entry.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the Texas Chainsaw Massacre one is definitely a requel, right? It pretends like a whole bunch of the sequels didn't happen. We're going right back to the only characters who exist from the original franchise are Sally and Leatherface.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I would say with that one, kind of runs into a lot of the problems with some of these. Like while we want them to be fresh, like Evil Dead Rise or something like that. Like we obviously want these to be modern and fresh. I think some of them try to be a little bit too modern, too hipster, too, especially like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022, I think is a good example. You kind of, a lot of people called it like the woke Texas because you had like gentrification and you had all this,
I can agree with that because I think one of the things I said earlier was that I think one of the things that makes me want teenagers today have movies about teenagers today is so that they can see, that's my life. That's what my life looks like. And I think a lot of like what's happening is adults in filmmaking are guessing because from headlines, right? From like, well, I watched the news yesterday and apparently teenagers are dealing with this, as opposed to like talking to the teenagers in their life and be like, you know what I mean? Like the average teenager is not dealing with some of these like big headline type issues.
No, they're not. I mean, that does not represent the teenage landscape.
They're also still living a normal life, right? They're worried about which,
yeah.
Kids are still kids. They're still worried about whether or not that person that they like is going to likes them back. They're still worried about, they overheard their friend talking about them the other day. They're still worried about like kind of normal, like normal stuff. And we've decided that that's not, or, a large swath of writers have decided that's not true. And I think Texas Chainsaw 2022 is a really good example of that. It's like none of those young people are living just like normal lives, right?
Yeah.
It's all big, splashy.
Yeah.
My life is a big splashy headline. It's like, what?
Right. Yeah. It just doesn't speak to the mass population.
Right. It doesn't make it, you're lacking that relatability.
Yeah. You don't.
Right?
Yeah.
Right, which is what's so fun about, the original Halloween film, the original Nightmare on Elm Street, is how relatable, even in retrospect, how relatable those young people are.
You want to hang out with them. It's like, I don't want to fucking hang out with anybody from Hellraiser, the new one. Yeah. I don't want to hang out with anybody from Texas Chainsaw 2022.
Right. Like, it's so easy, I think, even for kids today to watch, or young people today to watch the original Halloween and be like, I babysit. It can get really spooky. You know what I mean? Or like, yeah, man, I'm struggling to get good grades and my friends tease me because I'm a goody goody. Yeah. Like that's easy to like be like, yeah, I relate to that.
Well, another one that absolutely shit the bed and I think fits this bill perfectly is The Exorcist Believer. Because Blumhouse, this is their...
I hate that we even have to talk about this one.
Well, I mean, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Because number one, this is an exorcist film. This isn't... I'm talking about... I'm not talking about just your smorgasbord, for God's sakes, of the saturated exorcism films that are out there. This is an entry into the Exorcist franchise. The scariest movie of all time. The greatest horror movie of all time.
Yeah.
Widely considered... It takes the cake for both of those crowning achievements.
And it's also considered a requel, right? So it's getting rid of all the other sequels. Yeah.
So The Exorcist Believer comes out and just absolutely flops into this because this is like Blumhouse's MO. So they have latched onto, they're going to go for the lowest hanging fruit where they try to appease the loudest audience so they can get in front of them, I guess, which is, you know, another thing that this one's been accused of is it is went woke.
Yeah.
And I think that is the problem with a lot of these is they want to make a political statement. Their agenda comes first before the script. So it's like like an agenda that has a script around it instead of a story.
Yeah.
Where these characters have their own motivations or beliefs or whatever. And that's just part of the story. Instead, this shit is just force fed to you, and that is more important than the movie at hand.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what the fuck? I could have stayed home and watched Fox News or CNN or whatever if I wanted that.
I think that goes back to what I was saying about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right? So it's taking like headlines, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to people that are like, you know, if you had asked maybe some people who, because I know part of some of the problems that came in with Exorcist Believer and some of the things that people discuss about disliking about the film are some issues with Catholicism. And it's like, well, don't rip that from headlines. Don't rip, you know what I mean? Talk to some people who maybe have left the church. Yeah. Have a genuine discussion of like, well, what were the issues?
Find out the real issue. Don't do it just, and
then still be a good enough writer to have some subtlety with it. Like, why?
Yeah.
Don't hammer me over the head with something that, you read somewhere as opposed to something, like a lift
because,
experience.
because in that movie, Chris McNeil is now upset with that blasted Catholic church, because she wasn't allowed in the room during The Exorcism. It was like, look, I've watched The Exorcist. I know The Exorcist. I love The Exorcist. She went to doctors. She went to psychiatrists. She even says, I've been to every damn doctor.
Yeah.
And, and it's like, nobody would help her. She was literally begging for help. 2 Catholic priests died to help save her daughter's soul, and now she's pissed at them.
Yeah. Well,
that doesn't make sense. So what I'm saying is these people are completely out of touch.
Yeah.
They're horrible writers.
Yeah.
So I think that's why these movies are absolutely falling flat. They are just simply very lazy cash grabs.
Well, and it does feel like I saw that movie once. Yeah. Chris wasn't in the room during the exorcism, was she? That's weird. Let's talk about that. Whereas if you've seen the movie recently, right, or have seen it over and over again, she never asks to be in the room, and she certainly is never told you can't be in the room. Like they do tell her it is safer for her to not be in the room. And she allows herself to be escorted out of the room. Like she does not, like there is no fight between her and the priest of like, I really want to be there. And I think she is so horribly physically abused, literally, by the thing possessing her daughter.
Yeah.
That I don't think she was horribly upset that they were like, we've got this. You stay out here, right? Like if you watch the movie, there is no moment of like, no, I need to be in there with my daughter, right? Yeah. So to like now in the sequel, right, to write that like, no, she was horrified that she couldn't be in that room. It's like, show me that in the original, then put it in the sequel. Don't make it up now that we're watching the sequel.
Yeah. So they like retcon stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's like you are not only are you not adding anything
Yeah.
to new franchise entries,
Yeah.
you're actively taking away from the legacy.
Yeah. Oh, and let's not forget that the movie ends with her in deep gratitude because, let us not forget,
Yes.
2 men died saving her daughter's life.
Yeah.
You think now, like 30 years later, 40 years later, whatever, she's pissed? Like, give me 2 men died
2 men died.
saving her daughter's life.
Yeah.
Who cares if that they were priests, that they were they could have been, voodoo practitioners from the bayou, and she would have been like, I'm still so grateful they died
Right.
to save my daughter.
And Reagan runs up, gives the priest the kiss.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, how could you go against your daughter too? So she's not only going against the Catholic Church, she's going against herself.
Right. Let's ask some parents how they feel about somebody who literally died to save their child.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest about how you would actually feel.
Yeah.
If
it's
that was
just
the
super
situation.
weird.
Yeah.
It's just super weird. So yeah, like they're actively like destroying legacies with some of this shit, and it's pure lazy writing, pure cash grab.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And like you said, low hanging fruit. The Catholic Church is easy to pick on, so we're going to do that right here.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't necessarily make sense with the story. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Absolutely, and Jason Blum has no integrity. He doesn't give a shit. Blumhouse production suffers from a lot of these same mistakes.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
Yeah, yeah.
But, but it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop. All we can do is hope that it gets better, because there's a
train
lot.
Is rolling.
There's a lot of upcoming horror sequels, requels, reboots, remake, tons of shit.
Yeah, yeah.
Is starting to come out. I mean, we just saw Final Destination Bloodlines in
Loved
theaters.
it.
If you haven't seen it, you need
Loved
to.
it.
You need to. It doesn't take itself overly serious.
No, which the franchise never has, thank God.
Never has. So it stays in line with the established franchise.
Yeah.
You get all new characters. You don't really have to watch any of the previous ones to jump right in.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tony Todd, oh my God, rest in peace. That was a hard one to watch.
Oh, it was wonderful.
That was a hard. It is I'm going to tell you right now, Final Destination Bloodlines, #1. If you didn't see it in the theaters, I'm sorry, because that is one you really should see in the theaters.
Yeah, totally theater worthy. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Not only that, but some of the effects are enhanced by the theatrical experience, like period, because some of them are very, vertigo inducing. Some of them are very foreboding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Make you feel like a little worm on a big freaking hook. So I definitely think you have to watch this one in theaters. Like I said, you can jump in head first, even if you've never seen any of the other ones.
Absolutely. It's going to explain everything you need to know.
And Tony Todd, for those of you who are fans of the franchise in and of itself, Tony Todd, he gets a proper send-off in this one.
He does. Oh, it's so good.
It is so good.
Yeah.
And it fits right in with the movie.
Yeah.
So that's how well written it is. It is clearly a send-off. Like, he is clearly speaking to the audience, I believe.
Oh, 1,000%. He wrote his own scene.
Exactly. And because he was dying of cancer.
Yeah.
When they filmed this.
Yeah.
And it does not come off as, oh, well, this is fan service to the horror, and it breaks the fourth wall. It does not at all. It is beautifully written. It is so fun. Yeah, so great. Yeah, it gives you butterflies.
Oh, my God, me in a moment. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But
over here getting choked up,
So, I mean, there's one that came out, and it's very good.
Yeah, so good.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, we have the I Know What You Did Last Summer requel coming out.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's a requel, right? That
And this one, you're getting essentially a new telling of the same movie we got 20 years ago or whatever, with like a new cast of teens.
Yeah, but they are bringing back.
But they are bringing back Jennifer Love Hewitt
and Freddie Prinze Jr.
So you got that fan service, and you have the legacy characters they're going to bring in, which is going to. I mean, this is a prime example of those movies like Scream, and Halloween, who are, they're doing they're doing their thing to get butts in the seat.
Yeah. Are you looking forward to this one? Just out of curiosity.
Not.
Okay.
Not really.
Yeah.
It's one of those where I could go either way with even seeing it, and I could go either way with seeing it in theaters.
Yeah.
So it's not one that I would totally but if it's one like I'm like, well, it's just a cheesy popcorn movie, because I'm not particularly attached to this franchise anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're going to really ruin anything for me.
Yeah. And
it's also, but judging it on its own merits from what I've seen from the trailer, doesn't look that appealing. And, those actors and actresses weren't big draws for me anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think if you wanted to sit on the couch on a Friday night and watch it, I would.
Yeah.
But I don't think I would go see it in the theater. I was never a fan of the original franchise. I was never a fan of the cast in anything they did. I was just
except for Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Except for Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yeah.
Because I was a huge Buffy fan.
There you go. But,
but like everybody else was just kind of like, they were not my jam back then. And I was like, I'm just for the audience sake, like I'm pretty much their age, if maybe a couple years younger, but like right there. And I was not, they weren't my peeps.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it was a Scream ripoff, and it was, it's just, it is what it is. It's, I think I can get with it as much as I even can. Like, I did not like this movie when it came out. I just didn't. And it's, but I have a friend who loves this movie for whatever reason, and his nostalgia and his love for it have kind of rubbed off on me.
I love that. I love that kind of thing. Yeah. Like there's movies I am now a fan of because of what a big fan you are of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah. I get that.
But I mean, and I mean, there's a slew of other stuff we have coming out, you know what I'm saying? I mean, of sequels, we got Megan 2.0 is going to happen. I don't even know if you can consider that a horror movie from what I've seen from the trailers.
Yeah, it looks like an action sequel to a horror film, which we've seen happen in horror before. So it's not like it's, breaking the mold or anything. It's got that Terminator, the original was a horror film, the sequel's action. It's like that.
But, the Black Phone 2.
Yeah.
Speaking of Blumhouse, with Megan 2, we have the Black Phone 2 coming out.
Yep.
We have Five Nights at Freddy's, another Blumhouser.
Yeah.
Coming out. So,
I don't think I knew Five Nights was Blumhouse.
If I'm not mistaken, that's definitely Blumhouse because it was in the animatronics that they used in the film, the life-size animatronics. They were in the Blumhouse Museum at Halloween
at
Horror
Universal.
Nights.
Okay.
Yeah. So, we have a ton of sequels, and you know what? I hope that those, like them or hate them, I hope that they can kind of cement the and they're not just like these one-off sequels. I hope they did put some effort into them, because I would like to see the next generation get
their own movies,
their own franchise. And I'm not just talking about piggybacking on previous generations' franchises.
Yeah.
Talking about their own.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I don't want you to enjoy Final Destination Bloodlines or Saw or Friday. I'm just saying, like, I want you guys to have your own too, just so you know what that feels like to get a brand new story.
Yeah.
And to get a brand new characters and a brand new legacy and stuff that you get to grow old with, and then tell the generation below you, like, oh my God, dude, I was there.
Well, and
so
I'm going to slip in lest the young people think we're wildly out of touch. I want to acknowledge Terrifier, the Terrifier franchise.
Yeah.
I think they do have that a little bit in that franchise. The only argument I would make against that necessarily being what exactly we're talking about is I understand Terrifier is a much more niche horror film because of how gory and unhinged it is, right? So it's it has an audience.
Yeah.
it's not everybody, right? I don't think it's as wide of an audience.
It's not, and honestly, I feel like Art the Clown has kind of transcended the films themselves,
right? And that's an interesting thing. We've run into parents who are like, my kids have never seen those movies, they love Art the Clown.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a funny thing that's happening, so that's cool.
But I mean, and we have another entry into the Conjuring franchise that's coming out,
yeah.
So we have a Friday the 13th television series that's on the way, which but it's not too far. It'll be interesting to see how they do that.
Yeah, it seems like a weird
but
thing
it's not
to
too far because I think it does.
Yeah.
But I think with the Child's Play thing and you have Bates Motel and stuff like that, like.
See, but I feel like what makes Friday the 13th weird, even in comparison to those, is Chucky's a character.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
Norman Bates, absolutely a character.
Yeah. Jason necessarily move the
silent killing machine, right? Like,
but I also think that's another one of those things where it's going to be it's content.
Yeah,
I think it's just I think it feels a content. Need. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not necessarily.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if they turn him into a character, because I think that might be an interesting way to like.
Or they may even start off
something
with
new.
They may even follow Pamela. I'm not sure. There's a lot of speculation and not a lot of news on it right yet. Okay. So we'll kind of see where that goes. And nothing, as far as I'm aware, nothing is concrete. So I don't want to spread misinformation, but I do think that it is a pure streaming service content machine kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so I think it's just going to fill that, I don't even say void, because there's certainly not a void in that, subset of television. But, I mean, so do you think, I think we touched on this a little bit before. I think this is just the nature of the genre. I think, we've always gotten remakes, sequels, and we're just going to continue to get them. Yeah. I think now it feels a lot more prevalent, but we are getting some original stuff sprinkled in there, which is really nice. But I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it will continue to maybe be a little more prevalent. Maybe it comes in waves, but this wave has come very close to the last one. So I think it will become, because theaters are hurting for material.
Yeah.
And the film industry is changing and adapting, and they are going with very safe bets.
Yeah. They are.
You know what I'm saying?
It's gotten so expensive to go to the movies that I know, at least for myself, like I've gotten much choosier about what I see in a theater.
Me too.
Because it's too expensive.
Me too.
I mean, even just for the two of us.
That, and not only that, there's a lot of lackluster films coming out. Like there's nothing
you're super excited about.
It's such a content farm, content machine that you're almost overstimulated. Like there's so much shit coming out on streaming constantly. That's constantly, well, this is the big thing. Well, this is the big thing.
Yeah.
And then you get to the theater and it's like, but that's kind of lacking a little bit. Like they're, you know what I'm saying? And then they just pump out stuff we've already seen. Yeah. Stuff that's very derivative. Even in your quote unquote original horror films, it's like, well, dude, this is clearly
this ripoff or that ripoff.
Yeah, inspired by where it used to be, man. I mean, we did this not too long ago. Like we Googled what was in theaters on just a random day in like 1995 or something like that. And it would be like, well, Desperado, Apollo 13, Tales from the Crypt Demon. It's like, holy shit, all of those are vastly different.
Yeah.
But all great.
Yeah.
In their own right. It's like, those weren't inspired by shit.
Yeah. I know we've done that before too, to look at, did this or that film win the Oscar for its year? Because goddamn, like, what a good movie.
Oh my God.
Only to see, like, well, it lost, but it was because it was up against like these other 10 like phenomenal or whatever, you know what I mean? And it's just like, wow, that year was packed. And it's it's been a while, right? Since it felt like, and this year was packed with like excellent movies. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So, I would love to just ask the horror fan, man, hey, leave a comment on this episode, whether you're watching it through the YouTube, whether you're listening to it through Spotify or watching on Spotify now, or listening to it on Apple Podcasts, man. Hey, leave a comment, leave a review, definitely. But let us know as well, what legacy franchise should come back next? Anna mentioned Warlock earlier. I think that would be a really fun one I could see happening. It's very niche. It's very much a forgotten series of films.
Right?
But I think that one could be fun.
Yeah, and I know, and it's funny because that was just off the top of my head, and I know, if I actually had some time to think about, there would be others, but I think that's a really good one, right? I think especially right now. You know what I mean? Like, I think that would be kind of a fun, timely.
All right. Now I want to play a game.
Oh.
Okay. So this is, okay. So we're going to go back and forth.
Okay.
Naming a horror sequel, requel, whatever. Okay. A movie title. We're going to give each other a movie title.
Okay.
And you have to give a one sentence answer to that movie title. Like what it just immediately pops into your mind when you think of that movie title.
Okay.
I'll start us first, okay?
So I ask you first?
No, I'll ask you first.
Oof.
I'll start us off.
Oh, God.
Okay, Scream 6.
Let's bring back some characters we really like and rehash what's going on from Scream.
Okay.
Okay, Halloween Ends.
It is amazing to me that they were able to create the worst Halloween film in the franchise in 2023, 2023, wasn't it?
Yeah, that sounds accurate. Yeah.
How is the last entry of that franchise the worst one? Jesus Christ, there was a blueprint.
Yeah.
Okay. Evil Dead Rise.
Ooh. A dark, fun update of what the Necronomicon can do to a family trapped together in an apartment.
Hey, okay. Very good.
Okay. Hellraiser 2022.
It was nice that we finally got some answers to questions that have persisted throughout the entirety of the Hellraiser franchise.
Oh, God. Agreed.
To elaborate on that, such as, when does somebody get to become a freaking Cenobite? What separates Frank from Julia, or Frank from Pinhead, or Julia from Pinhead, or Chenard from Frank? We finally got an answer to that.
Yeah, and it's a great answer. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, next up. I Know What You Did Last Summer.
I don't care.
Damn, savage as shit, dude.
Final Destination Bloodlines.
I'm going to do the poster quote for this, that this is the most typical response of all time by any film critic of all time. A true nonstop thrill ride.
It is, though.
It is, right?
It's like, it's the first time that phrase feels super accurate.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022.
Overbloated with its own self-importance.
Hey, I like it. I like it. Damn, you got savage on some of those.
I just happen to get the ones we don't like.
I know. And
I'm like, I know. I say we haven't seen. I know what you did
got
last
Evil
summer.
Dead Rise.
Yeah, I did get Evil Dead Rise. I really enjoyed that. But like, I didn't like the original. I know what you did last summer, so I don't care that there's a new one coming out. Like, I don't care.
Okay.
I didn't know what else to say.
All right, I want to play another game.
Sure.
And this is all you. This is me asking all you. Okay,
Oh,
but
no.
but this is easy.
Okay. Promise.
I'm gonna go over a list of movie titles that are reboots, requels, sequels, whatever the current buzzword is, and you have to tell me whether you remember those even exist or you forgot them.
Ooh. Okay. We've talked about a lot, so okay.
So here we go. I know.
Let's
I added some special doozies on
Let's do
here.
it. I'm here.
Okay.
I'm gonna try not to look at your list. Okay, go.
The Craft Legacy,
I forgot.
Candyman.
Oh, I remember.
Oh,
But only because we were just talking about it a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Blair Witch, 2016.
Had no idea.
Damn. Okay. Rings.
What?
The Grudge.
You mean the one? There's a new one without Sarah Michelle Gellar? Had no idea. Had no idea.
Black Christmas.
Oh, yeah, I remembered, but I don't want to remember.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that movie's had 2 remakes, for God's sakes, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neither of which have been worthy of it. Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So,
that
I
it?
mean, that's
I
it.
did it.
That's it. Yeah. Right. Like, yeah, so it's,
I don't even know what Rings is the original. What's Rings?
what's Rings? I'm going to pull it because I think I've watched it. I'm pretty sure I've watched it actually, but,
I thought it's cute that.
yeah.
Oh, The Ring.
No, The Ring. Yeah, got a what? I don't know if it's a requel. Let's see. I can't even remember
You don't even
at this
know.
point.
Okay, so it's Rings.
It's Rings from
sequel to
2017. Yeah,
Ring or
Yeah.
just The Ring or whatever.
a young woman becomes worried about her boyfriend when he explores a dark subculture surrounding a mysterious videotape said to kill the watcher 7 days after he has viewed it.
Okay.
She's-
Yeah. No, I had no idea.
Yeah.
And it has Johnny Galecki in it. That's funny. No, I had no clue.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
had no idea.
Well, yeah, that's not surprising at all. I think a lot of people are probably watching this like, oh my God, I forgot about that. I'd love to hear those comments.
Yeah.
All right, horror fam, that is our take on reboots, sequels, requels, insert new buzzword here. Please let us know what you thought, man. Leave a review on the podcast. We're almost at 10 reviews on Spotify. I just want to break double digits.
Yeah.
Please. I just want to see that. We're almost double digits on Apple Podcasts as well. So leave a review there too. Please. I would really appreciate that. Of course, you can always find us at talkhorror.com. That is where you're going to find all the links to all of our good stuff.
That's right.
Or you can check out the link tree in our bio. That's there for your convenience too. And, we are most active on the YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
We do live streams every Monday and Thursday, as well as creating video content. So
That's right.
hit that up. You can follow us on Instagram, the Twitter, also known as X,
The TikTok.
the TikTok. Hey, we just crossed 5,000 on there.
A high five.
That's right, baby, because that's how we do it in the horror fam. And I also highly suggest signing up to the Talk Horror newsletter where you get exclusive content that you will get nowhere else.
Every Monday.
Every single Monday.
To your very own inbox.
There you go, baby. So if you want horror, we've got more. Yeah. But we thank you so much, horror fam, for hanging out with us for, an hour and a half almost now. Really appreciate it. We love every single one of you. And until next time, my friends, look horror,
listen horror,
talk horror. We love you, everybody. Mwah! Have a good night, or morning, or day, or requel, whatever.
Have a good reboot.